Hello everyone, this is ARIRANG News. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. The stories we are tracking for you at this hour. Reports say Washington is mulling over the possibility of installing a short-range anti-ballistic missile defense system in South Korea to counter threats from North Korea. Over in Japan, the royal family's call for a correct remembrance of the nation's history is likely to put pressure on Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's right-wing cabinet. And Korea-made TVs are doing well in the U.S. and European markets, but Korea-based Samsung's smartphones are losing their grip amid the fierce competition from Apple. But first, there is resistance from China and Russia when it comes to installing Washington's long-range radar missile defense system in South Korea. But apparently, there are now new plans to make the range shorter so that it can scan missiles coming from North Korea only. For more, here's ARIRANG News' Connie Lee.
The U.S. is apparently looking into making some changes to its controversial missile shield, which could be placed in Korea. The missile shield, known as THAAD, which is short for Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, is an anti-ballistic missile system designed to shoot down missiles in their terminal phase. The U.S. did say it is considering placing the system in Korea, although both Korea and China have expressed reluctance, saying it could threaten regional peace. The THAAD system was said to be equipped with radar with a range of between 1,800 and 2,000 kilometers, making it capable of monitoring and intercepting ballistic missiles from China. However, a Korean government source said Monday that the U.S. is considering a shorter range option for Korea called phased array radar, which comes with a range of about 600 kilometers. The source adds that the shorter range radar can only reach North Korea, so it will be harder for China to continue to oppose the installation of the defense system to South Korea. Washington's plans for the THAAD system in South Korea are said to be aimed at countering military advances not only from China, but also from Iran and North Korea. Connie Lee, ARIRANG News.
Japan's royal family has emphasized that it is crucial to uphold the nation's pacifist constitution. This is not the first time the royal family is making such remarks, and experts say it is likely to ignite a conflict with the right-wing cabinet. ARIRANG News' Connie Kim has more on this story.
Japan's royal family is ramping up pressure on the administration of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe to uphold the country's pacifist constitution as Abe prepares to release a statement in August marking the 70th anniversary of Japan's surrender in World War II. In a press conference this week marking his birthday, Crown Prince Naruhito emphasized the need to look back humbly on the past.
I think that it is important to correctly pass on the tragic experiences and history Japan pursued from the generation which experienced the war to those without direct knowledge.
Prince Naruhito went on to underline the importance of upholding the constitution. His position is in stark contrast to Abe's, who wants to revise a pacifist constitution and give the country the right to exercise its right to collective self-defense, allowing the Japanese military to aid allies under attack.
After going through a disastrous war, Japan is maintaining peace and prosperity under the constitution.
It's not the first time the Japanese royal family has called for preserving the current constitution. Back in December, Japan's emperor said the country should not forget about the precious lives that were sacrificed during wartime.
During World War II, more than 3 million people died. We shall not put their lives to waste.
Analysts say, however, that a conflict is likely as a right-wing cabinet, which decided last July to change the interpretation of the constitution, is unlikely to budge on the issue. The Japanese government plans to finalize items on the agenda for the constitutional revision no later than this fall. Connie Kim, ARIRANG News.
And the majority of the Japanese public's thoughts are with the royal family, apparently. A recent poll shows that they think their government should show remorse for Japan's wartime atrocities in a statement this summer marking the 70th anniversary of the country's surrender in World War II. A survey conducted by the Sankei Shimbun and Fuji News Network this past weekend showed that more than 51% of the respondents saying Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's statement should retain keywords of remorse and apology over Japan's wartime role as expressed by past Japanese leaders. Polls recently conducted by other Japanese media outlets have shown similar results. Abe is set to release a statement in August to commemorate the anniversary in which he said he wants to reflect his government's position on the war. And in the meantime, Abe's speech at the U.S. Congress has yet to be approved. U.S. State Department spokesperson Jen Psaki said Monday local time that although Washington welcomes Abe's visit, Congress and the administration will need to discuss Abe's wish to speak before Congress. Korean organizations in the U.S. have already started protesting Abe's possible speech. They say someone who denies his country's wartime wrongdoing, such as the sexual enslavement of Korean women, should not be given such an opportunity. If Abe does get to speak, though, he would be the first Japanese prime minister to speak before Congress in more than 5 decades. Following January's terror attacks, the French government has confiscated the passports of 6 French nationals who were suspected of joining radical Islamist groups in Syria. Now, that's according to the French Interior Minister, who said they were stopped when it was determined that trip was imminent. He also said the government was processing 40 more travel bans, which would be good for 6 months or more. This seizure is the first adoption of an anti-terrorism measure passed in November targeting suspected jihadists. Similar measures are in place in the UK and Germany. Australia's Prime Minister Tony Abbott on Monday also announced tough new anti-terror measures that would allow for revoking citizenship for dual nationals found to be involved in terrorist acts. In the year 2012 for Korea was Abed's record high.
All of the day's important events close to home and around the world. Join Laah Hyun-kyung live from Seoul.
Shopping market thinks the true meaning of creation shines through. Fears are growing that Korea's household debt load could become unsustainable as the latest figures show it has snowballed to nearly $1 trillion. ARIRANG News' Hwang Ji-hye has the details on the extent of all this borrowed money.
Korea's household debt shot up by almost $58 billion last year. In a report to the National Assembly on Monday, the Bank of Korea said that household loans by banks rose around $33 billion in 2014, and for non-banking institutions, $24 billion. When adding credit card bills and loans extended by all financial institutions like insurance companies, the total amount of household debt last year was estimated at over $980 billion. That means each Korean is in the red by about $20,000, considering the country's population that stands at around 50 million. Mortgage loans took up 80% of the total household debt, stemming from the central bank's 2 rounds of rate cuts that left the key rate at a record-matching low. The surge in debt was also spurred by the government's attempts to boost home transactions by easing real estate regulations. Experts are concerned that this growing household debt could drag down the domestic economy by denting private spending. They say households tend to refrain from spending even though their income may be rising, because they either use the extra money to pay off their debt or to save up. Hwang Ji-hye, ARIRANG News.
Competition in the job market is growing fierce in Korea, especially for those fresh out of college. A university degree alone is often not enough nowadays, so many tend to spend more time adding extra academic qualifications after graduation. Here's ARIRANG News' Kwon So-ah with more.
It's graduation season in Korea. As a country where around 2/3 of people have a university degree, it's no wonder that it's tough for these fresh-faced graduates to land their dream job.
It has become more difficult to find a job in your field of interest.
It's hard. I'm interested in opening a startup, but I'm afraid as it isn't easy. But then again, it's also hard to apply for a job.
Despite the rosy outlook on the gradual rise in the number of people in work, it's a different story for young people looking to get their foot in the door at a good company.
Due to a limited number of quality jobs, people work part-time jobs until they find a high-quality workplace, or they just continue to search for jobs.
That's why the age of people who were never in the workforce before keeps rising. A third of applicants at some 380 companies last year were in their 30s. Persistently striving for your goal is not a bad thing. That is, if age wasn't a consideration when it comes to getting hired. A job searching portal says almost 60% of those responsible for hiring are reluctant to take on new people that they consider old. On average, they thought that out of those who graduated from a 4-year university course, male applicants over the age of 32 and female applicants over the age of 30 were old applicants. More than half of Korean employees at some 460 companies feel uncomfortable working with new people in that age group, and nearly half of them thought the older employees could have unsettling effects on the order of rank. And that's mainly due to Korea's hierarchical office environment, which usually demands junior employees strictly obey their seniors. The joy on graduation day may not last too long, especially as companies say they aren't likely to recruit many new employees this year, as they feel the current number is enough. Kwon So-ah, ARIRANG News.
And in the tech realm, TVs made by Korean tech giants Samsung and LG are holding a majority of market shares in the U.S. and Europe. But when it comes to smartphones, it's quite a different story. ARIRANG News' Song Ji-sun reports.
Korea's high-tech TVs are solidifying their lead in the global flat-screen TV market. In Europe, the combined flat TV market share of Samsung and LG Electronics in 2014 topped 60%, meaning 3 out of 5 European customers bought Korean-made flat-screen TVs last year. While LG was at 3rd place in the U.S. market last year, behind local producer Vizio, the two Korean tech giants' combined market share still amounted to nearly half. The trend is backed by the strong preferences of U.S. customers. This year's Consumer Loyalty Engagement Index compiled by the U.S.-based Brand Keys shows Samsung is the top TV producer with the highest brand loyalty for the 4th consecutive year. The firm surveyed over 36,000 American consumers on how willing they are to purchase products from the same brand. The Korean tech giants may be doing well in the flat TV market, but they're struggling to regain their grip on the smartphone segment. In the same poll, Apple kept its lead in the smartphone and laptop categories for the 2nd year in a row, a title once claimed by Samsung back in 2013. Strategy analysts' 4th quarter figures show that Apple accounted for some 49% of global smartphone sales, with its large-screen iPhone 6 models dominating the premium smartphone sector, while Samsung slumped to just 17%. Song Ji-sun, ARIRANG News.
Well, speaking of Apple, its stock has set yet another closing record at $133 a share, giving the iPhone maker the highest ever market capitalization of any company. Apple's stock price surged 2.7% on Monday. Apple's market cap now stands at almost $775 billion, which is more than 4 times larger than Samsung Electronics. Samsung has been having a tough time competing with Apple at the top end of the smartphone market, while it has Chinese manufacturers closely trailing behind with better price competitiveness. And staying with China, an increasing number of global companies are pulling their factories out of China, and this is raising concerns that the trend will hurt Beijing's manufacturing industry. With competition rising from other Asian countries, some say China has lost its position as the go-to place for global firms. ARIRANG News' Kim Min-ji reports.
Japanese watchmaker Citizen recently shut down its factory in Guangzhou. More than 1,000 employees are up in arms after the sudden layoff, but the company says it's part of its restructuring plans. Citizen isn't the only one. U.S. software giant Microsoft has also shut down its Nokia factory in Guangzhou and plans to open a new factory in Vietnam. And with the Beijing factory also expected to close, some 9,000 employees are expected to lose their jobs. Industry watchers estimate more than 100 large factories, including ones run by Sharp and Panasonic, were shut down before the Chinese New Year in the city of Dongguan, one of the country's main manufacturing hubs. But what has triggered the mass exodus? Experts say rising labor and land costs. Such factors no longer make China a profitable investment. What's more is that the world's second largest economy is not expanding as fast as it used to. Another factor is that countries in Southeast Asia, such as India and Vietnam, are stepping up efforts to lure foreign companies. The U.S., Japan, and Europe are also offering incentives such as tax cuts and investment support to encourage homegrown companies to come back. The trend has raised concerns that China's manufacturing industry, once driven by cheap labor, is heading for a crisis. The official Purchasing Managers Index stood at 49.8 in January, falling below 50 for the first time in more than 2 years, signaling a contraction. Kim Min-ji, ARIRANG News.
Korean households are using much less electricity than their counterparts in the OECD. Data from the Korea Energy Economics Institute on Tuesday shows that Korea was ranked 26 among 34 nations for household electricity consumption, with Norway, Canada, and the U.S. topping the list. Now, the low consumption by Korean households is thought to be largely due to a payment system that sets and raises the unit price based on accumulated energy usage. In terms of the overall power consumption per capita, Korea was 8th on the list, driven by energy guzzling industries like steel, petrochemicals, and semiconductors. Now, this next report is for those of you out there who are constantly looking for an outlet to recharge your smartphones. ARIRANG News' Shin Se-min offers some quick and easy tips to help you extend your phone's battery life.
We make calls, text, take photos, watch videos, play games. The list goes on. Smartphones have permeated every part of our daily routine. But for some reason, they can't seem to get through the day on a single charge.
3번이요.
저는 2번 하루에 배터리를 스페어 하나 사서 3개 쓰고 있습니다.
한 2-3번 정도 충전하고 있어요.
하루에 3-4번 이상 충전기에 꽂고 충전하는 편이에요.
Korea's Electrotechnology Research Institute recently released a guidebook pinpointing some of the ways you can prolong your phone's battery life.
One thing you can do is to keep your phone at room temperature. Your lithium-ion-based batteries rely on electrically charged atoms, and they work the best at warm temperatures. So if you're out as the temperature drops, it is likely that your smartphone battery will drain more quickly. But if you must stay out and still want to keep that last inch of your battery life, just cover it up with a smartphone case or simply put it in a pocket.
Another tip? Never let it drop to zero. Unlike the nickel-based batteries in older phones, the batteries in smartphones are designed to be charged frequently. So don't wait until your battery dies. Even if it's fully charged, it's better to keep the phone plugged in for another 2 hours so the energy is distributed to every part of the battery. Also, switch off the vibrate function and don't turn your phone on and off. Dim the screen and disable the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth functions whenever possible. Kill applications if you're not using them and cut back on unnecessary push notifications. Another Facebook update can wait. And you can always track your battery use through apps that'll help show you how to save energy and stay charged. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
The The musical Notre Dame de Paris is back on stage here in Korea, stirring audiences, and apparently there's something special about this most recent series of performances. Our Im Yoon-hee joins us today to tell us what that is. Good afternoon, Yoon-hee.
Good afternoon. So the musical is celebrating its 10th year anniversary here in Korea. Now, when the musical first came through with its original cast, not only did it have a sellout show, but it also broke records with some of the largest audiences that any production had seen at that time. Well, this time around, the original cast is back, but it's some Korean performers who are stealing the spotlight. Take a look at this next report.
The musical Notre Dame de Paris broke records when it first came through Korea 10 years ago. And to celebrate, the original cast has reconvened in the capital to launch the start of their new world tour. The tragic love story set in the cathedrals of 15th century France is just as popular this time around as it was when it was first presented. The beautiful songs, combined with the intricate non-stop choreography, have proven to be an appealing and successful combination here in Korea. But there are a few dancers who truly shine in the spotlight, and that's the 8 Korean dancers and performers selected to perform alongside the original team, a world-class performing troupe.
There is no room for a break, and we dance until the end in the cathedral where the final act takes place. But it's really demanding. It's very draining to perform.
Demanding as it is, each member of the team pours all of their efforts into it, no matter what obstacles may lie in their way.
While I was ringing the bell, I slipped and pulled a muscle in my thigh. Afterward, I was afraid they would say Korean acrobats were weak, so I kept pushing forward and didn't show any signs of stopping.
From modern dance to ballet and even aerial choreography, the musical casts only the best of the best, and these 8 have proven that they belong on this team.
European dancers are taller, but I realized I make larger gestures and I'm louder. I was in charge of the biggest bell, and the original team complimented my work, making me proud.
The musical is set to be presented in Korea through the end of this week, with these dancers and acrobats shining through each and every performance.
So the choreography is absolutely stunning, especially with this piece.
Right, so this musical is considered to have some of the most difficult choreography of all French productions, and it's very heavy on modern dance, but Korea has been known to be a leader in Asia of modern and contemporary dance, so they really are being recognized for that. But as you saw in the report, there's also acrobatics, ballet, just everything under the sun is involved with this production, and so it's a very strenuous production, but as you can see, it's beautiful, beautiful show to see.
So I remember seeing this musical a very long time ago, not in Seoul though. So this one seems quite different from the one that I saw. But I feel like we're seeing quite a few large-scale French productions here in the capital, Seoul, being shown lately.
Right, so this is the only one. Gone with the Wind is another musical that is being shown here in Seoul. And there has been a recent trend of French shows being shown here. And they said that's partly due to the fact that it gives the romantic part of all these French shows that really is appealing to Korean audiences. But also there's this passion that really has been catching on. So I think you'll see quite a few more French shows come through town in the near future.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, Yoon-hee, for bringing us this interesting report today.
You're very welcome.
Hello, I'm Michelle Park here with the latest weather forecast. Finally, all of the yellow dust alerts have been lifted. However, there is still a light layer of yellow dust around, so keep your masks on, especially for those of you in the central region where higher dust levels are being observed. Now, fine dust levels are slowly coming back down to normal for most regions, except in Chungcheongbuk-do and Gyeonggi-do and Gangwon-do provinces, where dust levels are still lingering at around 100 micrograms per cubic meter. In general, the sky is expected to clear up and the sun will be around throughout the day, and milder afternoon is expected today And temperature-wise, it will be about 2 degrees higher than yesterday, and rain is also in the forecast for tomorrow, which will drag down the mercury. So don't put away your jackets just yet. Now, going over to our readings for today, Seoul will peak up to 8 this afternoon, while the southern regions such as Gwangju and Busan will top to 10 and 13. And moving over to other regions, Jeju Island gets up to 10 as well. Dokdo hits down to 6, while Mangungang is chilly at -3 degrees. Well, that's all for now, Michelle Park, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
And that's all the time we have for now. I'm Laah Hyun-kyung in Seoul. Another edition of ARIRANG News with me coming up at 4 p.m. Korea time.